Welcome back to Never Enough Novels. It is time for my informal mid-month reading check-in. So today I have some book mail that I want to share with you that I'm really excited about. I'll also go through a couple of the books that I'm currently reading and let you know my thoughts on them so far. And I need your help deciding which book to read next. So I have two options that I'm going to share, and you can vote in the comments to let me know which book I should pick up first. As always, I'll put the link to all of the books that I'm discussing down below in the description, so if any catch your eye, you can buy them from Amazon or Target and help support this channel at no extra cost to you. And as always, make sure you hit like on this video and subscribe to see all of my bookish videos in the future. Let's start with some of the book mail that I got recently. The first one is Don't Let Him In by Lisa Jewell. This was a huge surprise. I couldn't believe it when I opened up this package because I'm a big Lisa Jewell fan, and I feel like this is one of the hottest new thrillers of the summer that's coming out. So it is from Atria Books, so a huge thanks to them, and it comes out on June 24th. So you've only got about a month left until this one's available. This one initially caught my eye because it sounds like it revolves around this one man who might be living some sort of double life. So the male main character is Nick Radcliffe, and he's a charming man who is just what Nina needs in her life after her husband's unexpected death. But to Nina's adult daughter, Ash, Nick is a little bit too slick and too polished, and she feels like there's something going on with him that's not quite right. So without telling her mother, Ash begins digging into Nick's past, and what she finds is a little bit unsettling. Meanwhile, we've got another character, Martha, who is a florist living in a nearby town. And she has an infant daughter, and she's very devoted to her husband, Alistair. But lately, Alistair has been traveling more and more frequently for work and disappearing for sometimes days at a time. So when Martha questions him about his frequent absences, he always has like a legit explanation, but she can't help feeling that something is off there as well. So Nina, Martha, and Ash are on a collision course with a shocking truth that is far darker than anyone could have imagined. And all three are about to wish they heeded the same warning, don't let him in. I feel like Lisa Jewell always does such an incredible job crafting well-plotted thrillers. So I think these connections between kind of these two separate families is going to be something pretty shocking, and that makes me really excited to dive into it. On a completely separate note, the other book that I got recently is called The Enchanted Greenhouse by Sarah Beth Durst, and this one is from Bramble, and it comes out in July of 2025. So Sarah Beth Durst is the author of one of my top 5 books of last year, which was The Spell Shop. So these are cozy fantasies, and they are just the most heartwarming, lovable books about characters that you will absolutely fall for. They've got a little bit of romance, a lot of found family, and just kind of the main characters discovering where they're meant to be. So I adored The Spell Shop, and that makes me really excited to try her new book, The Enchanted Greenhouse, which sounds like it has a lot of similar vibes. I also love the cover of this one, and I think the final copy is going to come with the sprayed edges, similar to how The Spell Shop was as well. But for a quick summary of this one, so our main character is Turlu Perna, who broke the law because she was lonely when she cast a spell and created a magically sentient spider plant. And if you read The Spell Shop, that might sound a little bit familiar because we are very familiar with that specific spider plant from The Spell Shop. So I think we're getting a little bit of the backstory here and kind of an origin story for the person who created Kaz. But as punishment, Turlu was turned into a wooden statue and tucked away into an alcove of the North Reading Room in the Great Library of Elysium. So that should have been the end of her story, but one day she wakes up during the cold of winter on an island full of magical greenhouses. She is starving and freezing, and the only other human on the island is this grumpy gardener. So please give me some of that grumpy sunshine vibes because I just absolutely love that trope. So to her surprise, he offers Turlu a place to sleep, clean clothes, and food, at least until she's ready to sail home. But Turlu knows she can't return home because she will be subject to the same punishment and possibly something worse once they figure out who she is. And the greenhouses are basically her dream come true, so she desperately wants to stay in this place. But when she learns that the magic that sustains this entire place in the greenhouse is failing, Turlu knows she must do something to help. So assisted by the gardener and a sentient rose, Turlu must unravel the secrets of a long-dead sorcerer if she wants to save the island and have a fresh chance at happiness and love. So like I said, it sounds fairly similar to The Spell Shop, with a main character who is kind of looking for a fresh start and a place where she might find fulfillment and happiness. And there's a love interest in here, as well as probably a really unique cast of side characters. I love that one of the hallmarks of these books are sentient like plants or other beings that you don't normally expect. So that just kind of adds to the cozy fantasy aspect of it. So this is one that I like am so excited to get to. And like I said, if you haven't read The Spell Shop, I highly recommend giving it a try. If you like small town romances or really cozy, heartwarming ones, you'll definitely love that one too. So now let's get into a couple of the books that I'm currently reading, and I'll let you know what I'm thinking about them so far. First up is Passion Project by London Sperry. I got this one from Book of the Month, originally not knowing anything about it, but I'm not going to deny this colorful cover just totally won me over. And I am about maybe 2/3 of the way through so far, and I really like it. It's a very typical contemporary romance, but it's set in New York City during the summer, so I feel like this would make a really fun read as like a beach read or a summer read. It's about a woman named Bennett who is feeling very adrift and doesn't have any sort of purpose. She's dealing with some grief and just hasn't been able to find her way in New York City. And after this truly disastrous first date where she stands the guy up and then meets him later and just gets off on a terrible first impression, he eventually meets her again and realizes that she needs some help and offers to help her find her passion in New York City over the course of the summer, just as friends. So they set off on these little adventures every Saturday where they try out different passions and hobbies. So it's everything from tattoos to skydiving to crafting classes. And together they just, spend more time together, start to get to know each other a little bit. And Bennett is forced to kind of step outside of this grief that has consumed her for so long. So this is another one of those romances where the main character is dealing with a really heavy grief and the very real results of that and how it affects their lives. I feel like that's been a little bit of a trend recently in romances. So it's like a lighthearted romance paired with this really heavy topic. But so far it's been handled really well. And the story is still very lighthearted and funny and kind of full of hope. And I'm excited to see how it wraps up. But I really like this one so far. I think it's going to be at least a 4 or 5-star read. In the sci-fi genre, I am reading Dark Force Rising, which is the second book in the Star Wars Thrawn trilogy by Timothy Zahn. So these books are really old. I think they were written in the 70s, but they take place after the events of the original Star Wars trilogy, so episodes 4, 5, and 6. So I think it's 5 years after episode 6. So we have all the characters that we know and love from those movies, like Han and Leia and Luke, and they are now fighting against this new rising threat from the dark side. So the new Grand Admiral Thrawn is our main villain in this trilogy, and I loved book 1, but I feel like book 2 is even more exciting because we're starting to get to know Thrawn better as a villain and just seeing how diabolical and how skilled he is as a tactician and just being able to anticipate what our main characters are doing and try and trap them and get what he wants out of them. So if you're a Star Wars fan, I cannot recommend these books highly enough. I know they're not going to appeal to everyone. So honestly, I'm not recommending this for everyone because if you don't like Star Wars or sci-fi, then it's just not going to be your thing. But even as a mild fan of Star Wars who's kind of getting more involved in that universe, I have just been absolutely devouring these, and I'm excited to move on to book 3 and see what's in store for these characters. The audiobook that I'm listening to is called The Paris Express by Emma Donoghue, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to actually give this a try or not, but I didn't have anything else to listen to at the moment, so I figured why not. Emma Donoghue is actually the author of Room, which was that hugely popular book all those years ago about a mother and son that were kept trapped in a room for years and years of their lives, and that was a phenomenal book, and I've since read a few of her other more historical fiction books, and they always have some sort of unique twist that makes them a little bit different from just a normal historical fiction novel. So I've read The Wonder, and The Pool of the Stars is high on my list as well. But The Paris Express is another historical fiction novel, and it showcases the events of the train disaster that happened at the Paris Montparnasse station in 1895. And so far, the audiobook is a little bit difficult to follow along with because she's basically going through an entire cast of characters of all of these people that were on the train at this point in history, from first class to second class to third class to the actual workers and the train operators. So we're jumping back and forth as we kind of get to know all of these different characters, and there's a lot of French names and French places that are a little bit hard to keep track of, especially with the accent of the narrator. So I feel like this is one that might be a little bit easier to follow if I were actually reading it as a book. But she's doing a good job so far of getting you invested in the story and who these characters are. And I don't know anything about this event. So I don't know if it was truly an accident or if it was some sort of like terrorist threat or like political statement. So I'm curious to see, what eventually takes place. I think the audiobook is only like 7 or 8 hours long, so it's not a long book as well. So I think I'm going to keep going. If I get the chance, I might try and find it at the library so I can actually read the physical book instead. But I do love Emma Donoghue as an author. I feel like I haven't talked about her on my channel before. So I wanted to at least bring it up as someone who is worth checking out if you like historical fiction novels that are a little bit different than just kind of the typical like World War II. So if you want to try her out, I highly recommend Room overall if you haven't read that yet. That was just an all-around fantastic fiction book. But then on the historical fiction side, I really liked The Wonder out of all of her books. And the other one, The Pool of the Stars, is also high on my list. So lastly, for what's up next on my TBR, this is where I'm going to ask your help. So if you want to comment on this video and let me know which of these 2 books you think I should read first, please do that. I always love hearing what you guys think. First up is Total Dreamboat, and this is from Flatiron Books. So this is an author that I hadn't heard of before, Caitlin Doyle. So this would be my first book by her. But honestly, again, the cover kind of drew me in because I thought it looked like a fun summer read. So without knowing too much about it, it sounds like it's an irresistible rom-com about what happens when a cruise ship romance goes overboard. So we have these cruise ship vibes, which I think, again, would be really fun for summer. Our main characters are Hope and Felix. So Hope ends up on this luxury cruise ship after her best friend invites her along, even though she's not exactly a cruise person. And Felix is a sober, determinedly single, workaholic chef. I always love a main character that's a chef, just as a side note. So he hates leaving his restaurant, but his parents surprise him and his sisters with these cruise tickets, so he can't say no. So both of them are kind of on this cruise, but not really looking forward to it. But when they lock eyes at check-in, they realize this could be maybe a fun 10-day fling in the Caribbean, so maybe that won't be so bad. But a situation happens that leaves them stranded in paradise, and they are now forced to share a bed and figure out a way to make their way home. So it sounds like kind of a vacation gone wrong, and then a heavy forced proximity trope between these two. So again, I think it's just going to be like an easy breezy summer read. So we'll see. This is called Total Dreamboat. So that's my first option. Next up is a new fantasy from one of my favorite authors. So this is Julie Soto, and her new book is called Rose in Chains. And I got this from Forever after like begging them for it because I was really excited for it. She has written 2 regular like contemporary rom-coms. They are both fantastic. Like I have just absolutely loved her first 2 books that she wrote. They were both like easy 5-star book recommendations. I can't remember the names right now. I'll have to put them down in the description. But this one is her first like attempt at a romantasy, which is kind of interesting because the other book that I recommended recently, and I did a whole review on that one, is called Shield of Sparrows. That was by Devney Perry, who is also a romance author and has written a ton of romance books, but she decided to try out a romantasy book as well. And I loved Shield of Sparrows. Like it is easily one of my favorite books of 2025 so far. So she did a great job making the jump to this genre. So I'm like really excited to see if Julie Soto can do the same thing. So in this book, though, let's see, I don't actually know exactly what it's about, but this is supposed to be about Bryony Rosewood, who watches as her brother is killed, her kingdom falls, and her home is overrun by enemies. Now Evermore is no more, and Bryony is sold at an auction, prized only for her remarkable magic. But the fall of her kingdom and the death of her brother isn't nearly as agonizing as being sold to Tevin, who is part of the powerful and devious Hearst family, because Bryony knows Tevin from the merciless tauntings that he was subjected her to all throughout school. So now he's grown into a man that he can't ignore. Ooh, silver-haired, we love that, and impossibly unfairly beautiful, but he is definitely her enemy. So any world where magic can instantly crush a human heart and even thoughts can be stolen, there should be no such thing as love, especially not for Bryony. But a secret rebellion is brewing and she needs to find a way to escape her cage and join it. And that might mean teaming up with a guy that she thought was her enemy the whole way through. So this sounds, from that description, names and places are going to be a little bit different, but it has a lot of very typical romantasy aspects to it. And I know that it might be similar to other books that I've read, but honestly, I still love these books for a reason. So, and I trust Julie Soto as an author particularly. So again, I'm really excited to get into this one. So let me know in the comments which of these two you think I should read next, or let me know what's on your TBR, what book you're currently reading and loving as well. So that wraps up my reading update for mid-month. I always do a full review of every single book that I read during the month, so keep an eye out for that in a few weeks, and make sure you hit subscribe to my channel to get all of my bookish videos.